Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 195 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm doing very well. I'm happy to be in studio with you. I'm always happy to be in studio with you.
It's a good time.
Yeah, you and I had a lot of fun. We did our Patreon weekly video earlier, and I don't know, we just couldn't seem to stop laughing.
You had the giggles, man.
Yeah, you were cracking me up, and I just couldn't stop. And we don't edit those either, so people get to kind of really see.
I was just hanging out, man.
Well, that was part of the problem. That's what made me laugh.
That's true.
You were hanging out.
That hanging out thing.
But episode 195, it's kind of amazing
that
we're nearing 200, but it also means that, what are we going to do for 200?
I don't know. The pressure's on. Or is it?
Well, I think the pressure's always on to deliver.
Yeah.
I don't know that it's any more pressure because it's episode 200, but we'll have something good.
We will.
For everyone. We continue to receive an amazing amount of support on Patreon. Let's give some shout outs. We had Anna Marie Seahack.
Hey, Seahack.
Victor Braddock.
What's going on, Braddock?
Jennifer Murphy.
Hey, Jennifer.
Renee Tupikoff.
Hey, Tupikoff.
David Baker.
Thank you, David.
Trudy.
Good old Trudy.
Talera.
Hey, Talera.
Debbie Baker.
Hey, Debbie.
Wendy Hutchins.
Good old Wendy.
Good old.
Yeah.
Janine Stiles.
Hey, Janine.
Samantha Lynn.
What's going on, Samantha?
Ufook Boring.
Well, you fook boring too, man.
Melissa Holder.
Hey, Melissa.
Heather.
What's happening, Heather?
Dan Fleming Hearts T-Cat.
Well, thanks, Dan.
Colleen Walsh.
What's going on, Colleen?
Julie Poor.
Oh, thank you, Julie.
Lucy Love.
Oh, thank you, Lucy Love.
Chris Hayek.
Hey, what's going on, Chris?
Jade Parkin.
Thank you, Jade.
No Fumaire for Mary.
Well, no Fumaire. That's all you can say.
And last but not least, Barbara Tatum.
Appreciate that, Tatum.
Yeah, we appreciate all that new support. And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Eva Nordland.
Eva.
So thank you, Eva, and thanks to all of you who continue to support on Patreon month after month.
Yeah.
We had some great PayPal donations from Marion Kahn.
Hey, appreciate that, Marion.
Michael Weeks.
Hey, what's happening, Michael?
Carolyn Burkhart.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And Deborah Denblaker.
Denblaker, you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, Gibbs. Right now, we have an episode out on True Crime All the Time. We're talking about Stephanie Lazarus. This is a very interesting case that I've been wanting to do for quite some time. You know, Stephanie was a Los Angeles police officer, LAPD, who murdered her ex-boyfriend's wife.
Right.
So basically became jealous, thought she would get rid of her romantic rival, and that would bring back the love of her life.
It'd fix everything.
The
audio is really good on that one. I like the audio.
Yeah, there's some good interviews with her. It took them a long time to put the case together, but they eventually did. But it's a good episode. Make sure you check that out.
For sure.
Now, before we start this episode, we want to give a shout out to Lindsay Sklerick for her help in researching this episode for us. All right, buddy, are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
Always am.
We're talking about the disappearance of Amy Sher in Massachusetts, 2002. Amy Sher was born on April 22nd, 1964. She grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, was close to her family. She had a very good childhood.
She's in Boston.
Boston,
that's a good place to be born, man. Because you get to say Boston. How you like these apples?
You can say them like that and not have to make it up.
Or that too, yeah.
Amy worked hard at school. She was raised religiously in a Jewish family. She was the youngest of four, and all the siblings were close growing up. After graduating from Brookline High School in 1984, Amy attended the University of Michigan. She had been in the marching band in high school, and she continued on in college as a member of the band. She graduated from with a major in engineering, specializing in hospital maintenance.
Impressive.
Yeah, very impressive.
I know they have a very good engineering school up there.
They do. They do. And I think it goes to show you that, number one, she was intelligent,
Yeah.
but she worked very hard in her academic studies. That was stressed in the research that we did.
Right. And when you lived up there, did you live near the university?
No, I lived in Detroit.
Okay.
So Ann Arbor is, I don't know how far away from Detroit, but
Pretty good distance then.
yeah, it's not right around the corner for sure. But I did still have to deal with those pesky Michigan fans,
Oh,
which was hard, living in Detroit, flying and wearing your Ohio State Buckeye colors.
probably didn't go well.
It didn't always go well,
Yeah.
but I wasn't too worried
At
about
least
it.
you stay true to who you were, though. And you didn't change.
Oh, no. I did not change. Now, the one thing I did do was become a fan of hockey.
Yeah.
And, at the time, we didn't have hockey here in Ohio. We now have a team. But so when I got to Detroit in like the 90s, the Red Wings were tearing it up.
Yeah.
And I really got caught up in that hockey fever
Gotcha.
and had to learn the game. But even went to see some of the games at the arena.
That's cool.
After college, Amy moved back to Massachusetts, settled in Burlington, and got a job at a hospital. She married a man named Paul Pomerantz in 1990. A year later, she got a job at Massachusetts General Hospital. While she was working there, she met a man named Robert Desmond. Robert was known as Bob, and Bob was constantly flirting with Amy, and Amy reciprocated. Sometime in 1991, Amy started working for the Leahy Clinic in the finance department. It was not long after she took this job that she just up and left her husband, Paul, for Bob Desmond, according to the Lowell Sun News. It was around this time that her family began noticing that Amy was pushing them away. I think on top of that, Gibbs, Bob began telling Amy that her family disapproved of him, so she needed to stop talking to them. So I think that kind of goes along with, okay, her family's noticing that Amy is pushing them away. Well, now we know the reason.
Yeah. Bob's saying, hey, quit talking to him.
And I think it was just pure manipulation on the part of Bob. Amy believed Bob. She was enamored with him, and she thought that he was the best thing for her. And if he said something about her family, I took it, Gibbs, as though, okay, she was going to take his side.
Right. His word over theirs. He knew best for her is probably how she felt at that time.
I believe so. In 1992, Bob and Amy married, but Bob didn't allow any of her family to attend the wedding. And after they were married, she completely cut off all ties with her family. Basically all connections were severed, and not a single person in the family heard from Amy anymore.
Had to be difficult.
It had to be difficult, yes, but I also think it shows you the level of control that Bob had, the level to which he was able to manipulate Amy and get her to do what he wanted her to do. And it wasn't like Amy's family just took this, right? They tried to reach out to her. They made many attempts to contact her, but every time they did, Bob would call them back. He threatened them. He harassed them. And so I think eventually the families assumed that, okay, Amy really did want nothing to do with them.
Right.
If you're told that so many times and she's not contacting you,
not making any effort.
No. Now they're hearing all this from Bob, but you have to couple that with the fact that she's not making the effort to reach out.
Right. Well, hasn't she called me and say, oh, don't listen to Bob. He's just grumpy. They're not getting that phone call.
No. But even if they didn't call and try to talk to Amy, they would still hear from Bob from time to time. Allegedly, he made calls to the family and threatened them. I guess on several occasions, he insulted them with anti-Semitic remarks. I mean, it got so bad that Amy's mother had to file a no contact order.
But if you look at it, maybe Bob kind of planned it this way, kind of masterminding, how do I isolate my now wife, Amy, from anything she had prior to me? I'll scare them. I'll make them not want to be around her, after I cut her off first.
Or me, because I'm going to be such an asshole.
Yeah.
That they're going to have no choice but to stay away. And I do think you're right. There was some things in the reporting that Amy's mom later told friends that she figured out that this was probably Bob's plan all along. And Gibbs, what I found unbelievable was, this wasn't 6 months of no contact. This wasn't a year. 10 years went by.
Yeah.
With her family not having any contact with Amy. They missed her. I mean, you think about it as a dad. I'm sitting here thinking about it as a dad. I can't imagine what it would be like to be completely cut off from one of my daughters, as though they didn't want to speak to me or my wife. We couldn't get in touch with them.
It's so hard.
I think I'd go out of my mind.
Yeah. So difficult.
So in 2002, the family hired a private detective named Joel Pitchey to figure out where Amy was. And I think more importantly, if she was doing okay. Because again, they had no idea. The detective found her living in Billerica, Massachusetts, with her 6-year-old son. The detective approached her and handed her a note from her family. Joel told the police later that the note asked Amy to contact her family. He also told them that Amy expressed no desire to reunite with them. So Gibbs, I imagine this had to have been a shock to Amy's family on a number of fronts. Number one, they just found out she had a 6-year-old son.
Yeah.
That they knew nothing about.
They have a new addition to their family.
Right. And then number two, from Amy's own mouth, heard that she had no desire to reunite with them in any way. Amy's family told the Lowell Sun that Bob threatened them after the detective visited her. So I don't think there's any doubt when you're looking at Bob Desmond, he was very adept at isolating Amy, at getting her mindset to a place where he wanted it to be.
Fear?
Well, I don't know how he did it exactly.
Yeah.
Manipulation, fear, a combination of all that, but getting it to a place where either she felt in her heart that she didn't want anything to do with her family, or she knew that's what she had to say, because if not, there were going to be repercussions.
Right. If you believe Amy's family.
Yes. And then on top of that, I think Bob, according to them, he threatened to wipe them all out if they ever showed up anywhere near him or Amy again.
It's a pretty strong statement from him to them.
Yeah, I think you have to take that one pretty seriously. If somebody threatens you in that way, it's not a threat that anyone should make lightly. Really shouldn't make it at all. But, it's not something to be taken lightly. That's for sure.
Yeah, you have to be concerned that someone would follow through on that.
Yeah, I'm telling you right now, if my neighbor yells at me from driveway to driveway and says, hey, if you don't move your car, I'm going to wipe out your whole family.
There's going to be a problem.
There's going to be a big problem.
Yeah.
Because you just don't make those type of threats. You don't threaten people's family.
Yeah.
Now, if he says, I'm going to kick your ass, all right, we'll try that and we'll see how it works. But that's different than threatening to kill your family.
Exactly. That's another ballpark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to punch me in the face? We'll see who's able to take
drop him where he stood
to take the punch. Those are two different things.
It is. It really is.
On Monday, October 14th, 2002, Amy Sher left her job at the Leahy Clinic. Earlier than normal. In her parking lot, Detective Joel Pitchy talked to Amy again about her family. He handed her letters and pictures from them. Again, she asked the detective to never reach out to her again. He told police later that Amy was visibly upset. On the following Tuesday and Wednesday, Amy called off of work claiming that she was ill. On Thursday, October 17th, Bob called her in sick and told her employer that she wouldn't be returning to work ever again, which is a strange thing to say.
Yeah.
Not, hey, Amy's quitting. And maybe, he said it in that way. I guess for me, it would be strange for an employee's spouse to call in.
Right.
And not the employee to say, you know what, this just isn't working. I'm not coming back. I've never, in all my years in the business world, received a call from a spouse or a boyfriend, girlfriend saying, you know what, my significant other's done.
Yeah. They're out.
They're out. So I do find that strange. And then on Friday, October 18th, Bob called Amy's employer again and asked for her boss's email address so he could send an email from her. So again, I mean, when you hear this, it all sounds a little hinky.
It does sound strange. Like you said, if you actually got that type of call in your previous roles, you would shake your head. You'd be like, something doesn't seem right. That's just really strange. It's not normal for sure.
So she's ill and now she doesn't want to work there.
Right.
But she can't call herself and she can't even type an email. I get it. Some people are so worried about confrontation or having that type of uncomfortable phone call that they wouldn't want to make it.
Right.
But sending an email, it's pretty easy.
No confrontation there.
No, because you don't even have to read what comes back if you don't want to.
It's like you sent it, you're done.
Shortly after Bob's call to Amy's employer's office, her boss received an email from Desmond at att.net with a resignation letter attached to the email. The resignation letter had a pretty interesting statement in it. It read, "Recent difficulties I have experienced regarding my personal security and the problematic situation we discussed about the private investigator stalking me at home and appearing at work necessitate that I make some life adjustments to restore privacy." Her letter also stated she had intentions to relocate to another area. I get it. If she really did not want to be bothered by this private investigator / detective, it would have bothered her. But to the point that you're going to give up your job, you're going to move just because the person has visited a couple times and gave you some letters and pictures from your family. Again, I mean, if you're looking at things as odd, you got to point this out as being odd as well.
I would say if that's how you felt, then let's take it up with harassment issues against the detective coming on property and, approaching you at your car. It's not a work issue. We're not telling the detective to come here and approach you at your car. So,
and then I think you also have to at least take a look at the fact that the email was sent from Desmond.
Yeah.
Which I'm assuming is Bob's email address.
Right.
And I don't know if she had a separate one. I don't know who doesn't.
But we know, according to Amy's family, Bob didn't want her to have any contact with her family. So if he found out this detective is visiting her at the workplace, he can't control that unless he's going to sit out there all day long. So maybe he's like, hey, you can't work there anymore because I can't control that.
And I think for a manipulative, controlling person, like I get the sense Bob to be, now based on the information we have,
right?
And I'll make that caveat, I think that would be very tough. That situation that you can't control,
right?
Wondering, is this private investigator going to get her alone? I'm not there.
Yeah.
And sway her. And she's going to say, you know what? This is all bull. I miss my family. I need to see them. I think for a person like I believe this guy to be, that could be very, very tough.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Because you don't want her to find support anywhere else but you.
A few days later, Amy's boss received the hard copy of the resignation letter with what appeared to be a forged signature on it. Amy never returned to work to get any of her personal items. She didn't even pick up her last paychecks. Now, unless you're a quadrillionaire,
right,
that's something that to most people is out of the question.
You're going to want that money.
I worked for it.
Yeah.
And if there's paychecks sitting there, I'm getting them. Even if I have to make a phone call and say, hey, can you mail them to me?
Which they did. They mailed them to her and they never got cashed. You got to wonder why. Why wouldn't you have cashed them?
See, to me, that's even more mysterious.
Right.
Because they show up in the mail. You don't have to see anyone you don't want to see.
Oh.
And the fact that they were never deposited is super odd. And we'll get into it. Obviously, there's going to be suspicion surrounding Bob Desmond.
Sure.
Right? Everything we've been saying is kind of leading up to that.
But you know me, and I know you wouldn't either. We would never leave money on the table like that.
No.
You know?
I took 20 out of your wallet when you weren't looking earlier, right after dinner.
What? I thought it felt a little
well, that's all that was in there. So.
Well, that was my special 20.
And I was shocked that that much was in there.
Yeah. That was a brand new bill when I put it in there back in 1988.
No, but, joking aside, you start to look at all of these little things.
Right.
And again, have to couch it with saying, okay, a lot of it comes from her family. Now, these are facts. The paychecks were mailed. The paychecks were not cashed. When you add all of these up, and we know that this case is about the disappearance of Amy Sher, it's not looking good.
Well, and you're right. And it won't, as we progress through this story.
And I think Gibbs, understandably, Amy's boss was concerned about the email, the letter, the fact that she never cashed her checks, and really even more so on some events that occurred before her resignation that we'll talk about here in a little bit. So he called the Billerica Police Department. He told the police all of his concerns, and that based on everything, he felt Amy had been murdered. Amy's coworkers told police that they thought Amy had been abused at home. They first noticed her with some bruises and cuts on her hands and arms. They noticed her hands were swollen, especially her knuckles. They also noticed that she had clumps of hair missing, as if someone had pulled it out. Her boss and coworkers, they had a lot of examples.
Yeah, such as upsetting phone calls. They would overhear her crying, really getting upset on the phone, pleading with somebody on the other line. And I've been in an environment where I've heard that before. When you hear couples arguing on the phone at work and you're like, can't you take it somewhere else? But from what I understood, from everything I researched, this was pretty excessive. Like, it would happen several times a day.
Every day.
Every day.
Or pretty much every day. Yeah, I get what you're saying, where a couple has a fight, let's say the night before.
Right.
And they don't resolve it. It spills over into the next day, and so they're talking on the phone. But that's not what we're talking about here.
No.
From what I understand, this was an, if not every day, almost everyday occurrence. And it would be noticed by bosses, coworkers. It would be kind of hard to overlook that type of behavior.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised it didn't end up in some type of disciplinary action. And maybe it did, and that just wasn't a part of the record, or it wasn't reported on.
It was so bad they had to move her to a private area so she wouldn't disrupt other workers.
Which again, to me, as a former boss, seems strange. Yeah, I get it. You make concessions, or
Right.
you have to make certain
Accommodations.
for people,
Right.
but moving you so you can argue with your husband on the phone 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times a day, that doesn't seem like a concession that I would have made.
I don't think I would.
Most people wouldn't.
No, you say, you know what, maybe we're not the right place for you.
Amy's coworkers also said that she came into work many times, barely able to walk, limping. They said it often appeared as though her legs were very swollen. One time, it was extremely bad, and she told a coworker that she fell off a horse while horseback riding. I think these coworkers were very concerned
Yeah.
for her, Gibbs. They tried to get her to seek medical help. She refused. They even tried to give her money for her copay because maybe they thought she didn't want to do it because of the money. Days after this particular incident, she came to work with the knee brace on and was using like children-sized crutches to help her move around.
Yeah, it almost appears like instead of going, seeing the doctor and getting looked at correctly, that, she found some knee brace to slide on and was using, like you said, kids' crutches. That didn't even...
Yeah, maybe her sons. We don't know. But it was obvious to everyone that the crutches were way too small for her. She didn't get them from, going to see a doctor or from a hospital visit.
Right. And maybe the reason she didn't see a doctor is because she didn't want the doctor to see other issues that she had, other bruises or...
Yeah, and unfortunately, this is something that we often see in cases involving domestic violence.
Yeah.
Now, again, we don't know exactly what was going on in this marriage. But I'm telling you right now, Gibbs, it's hard not to think, based on not just her family, but, the comments made by the people at her workplace, that she was not being abused. But going back to what you said, in a lot of these cases involving domestic violence, you're exactly right. The victims don't want to seek medical attention because why? That's going to lay bare all of the things that are going on.
Right.
A doctor's going to see all these injuries. If they take an x-ray, they may see a bunch of past injuries. And it's not going to be that hard for them to put it together. Doctors are pretty smart. And now you've got a situation where your abuser is going to be extremely upset.
Exactly.
And you don't know what's going to happen from there. It's a horrible situation. Amy's coworkers asked her a number of times if everything was okay at home, and she would never say that anything was wrong.
No, just like you said, the fear of telling somebody or the fear of going to the doctor and then letting it be discovered means bigger problems most likely at home.
Especially if you've been manipulated, devalued, put down, for the last 10 years or so. I mean, all of that adds to what would be a very traumatic situation. And I think in your mind, a possibly deadly situation if you make the wrong move.
Yeah. And if you did try to make a move, where would you go? You've been isolated from any and everybody that you ever had in your life. And as far as you know, they don't want anything to do with you anyway, because you've done that to them.
And I'm sure that was drilled in as well.
Sure.
Gibbs, her coworkers went as far as posting flyers about domestic violence, free help. So to me, it seems as though these people around her at her job, at the Leahy Clinic, they really went out of their way to try to help Amy if she was, in fact, a victim of domestic violence, which I don't think there's any doubt. These people thought for sure she was.
To the extent of help that they offered, for sure.
They had a domestic violence counselor come into the office one time when Amy wasn't there. They instructed her coworkers how to discuss the abuse Amy may be experiencing and how they could help. Amy's boss told the police at one point he offered her money to leave her husband and take her son and relocate somewhere where she would be safe.
And a pretty substantial amount of money from what I saw.
Yeah, I think you and I both saw upwards of $10,000.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's not going out of your way, that's a long way out of your way.
Exactly. Yeah.
For sure. But I don't want to overstress it, but I think it's important what strides these people took to try to help her out. It wasn't a one-time thing. They really went all out.
Yeah. And I know Amy appeared to be really scared too during all this, but she still refused to accept help from her boss and from anybody else.
The office secretary told the police that Amy's husband called her all day long. If she didn't answer, she would later hear Amy apologize and basically plead for forgiveness. The secretary told police that Amy had an impromptu meeting, and so she had to step away from her desk. Bob called several times wanting to speak with her, and the secretary told him she was away from her desk and she'd have to call him back. He kept calling, and each time he called, the secretary told him the same thing. She told police that Bob yelled and screamed at her that Amy knew better than to miss his calls. So eventually that day, Amy learned about how upset Bob was. She left work for the rest of the day. The very next day, when she returned, her face was bruised and she had a black eye. Amy's coworkers reported that really the only positive thing she ever talked about or even smiled about was her son.
Yeah, yeah.
When she talked about him, they got the impression that he was her whole world. They said, it was very easy to see how much she loved her son. But her coworkers told police after that day that Bob called and yelled at the secretary, things seemed to get even worse. They said Amy seemed as though she had been depressed. She had been losing some weight.
Right.
That was something they noticed. But after this incident, she was even more depressed.
Right.
She began to lose more weight. She appeared extremely fragile. They said she had a sick, pale color, and she never spoke about her son again after that. So, obviously this was a very big traumatic incident.
Yeah. And she probably felt embarrassed too, being at work, knowing that people were hearing these conversations.
But Gibbs, Amy was an intelligent person.
Sure, she was.
She had to have known, based on all the things her coworkers had said to her, had done for her, all the things we mentioned, they knew what was most likely going on at home
Right.
for her. So Gibbs, we've mentioned all these things that Amy's boss and her coworkers said to police. Well, obviously there's going to be a lot of red flags there. And so they performed a welfare check on Amy Sher. They spoke to Bob, asked him where Amy was because they wanted to talk to her. Police said Bob told them that he and Amy had agreed to split up and she had moved out. Bob said that the split was over her family and the private investigator that kept showing up. He told them that he dropped her off at the Alewife train station in Cambridge on October 18th, sometime between 11:30 to noon. And I think the day here is important.
Sure it is.
Now, Gibbs, I think most people would think, all right, it's a little strange that someone who allegedly was sick all week, so sick that they couldn't come to work, would be able to travel on a train that afternoon. But police were never able to speak with Amy. They never got to see her. So they left this welfare check believing that Bob was telling the truth and concluding that there really was nothing else to investigate at the time. Now, there's two things that I think are important here that we need to discuss. First of all, no one ever notified Amy's family that Amy had left Bob because nobody except for Bob really knew about her family.
Right.
And then the second thing is her son, their son, stayed with Bob. And that's tough for me because of, the coworkers talking about how much Amy loved her son. It's always tough to imagine that a loving mother would leave without her son or without her child. It's always hard for me.
Yeah, I find it difficult to think that a mother would ever leave their son. I mean, I know it happens.
It does.
I watched The Hours. I've seen that movie.
Sure.
I know that happens.
No, it does. But I don't know. I guess if I'm the police and, this is Monday morning quarterbacking,
sure,
obviously, but I would have to take that into account. Okay, I hear what you're telling me, but you're also saying that she just left her son too? I mean, I guess they had no way to verify it either way. So what else could they do?
Right.
About a year and a half later, Amy's family hired Detective Joel Pitchey again to check on Amy and try to make contact once again. This time, though, he discovered she no longer lived with Bob and their son. After speaking with the local police, he did canvass the area, talk to a few neighbors. One of them told him that they had never seen Amy outside the house without her husband.
Telling.
It is when we go back to this concept of control.
Right.
If Bob was this controlling husband, then he would not have wanted Amy to wander around the neighborhood outside of the house without him. Because again, if he's not with her, he loses some level of control.
Yes.
But also, neighbors said that their son was never allowed to play with the other kids in the neighborhood. Another neighbor mentioned a really bad smell coming from their chimney back in October of 2002. The neighbor said it smelled like burning flesh.
It's interesting. I mean, if you think that someone was burning a body.
Well, October of 2002 is when she supposedly left. Pitchey checked on any activity with Amy's bank accounts, credit cards. He couldn't find anything.
So if she got on a train, went and relocated somewhere, you would think you would see movement within her bank account, right?
At least until she set up a new bank account in wherever she relocated.
And if you're going to relocate, wouldn't you go ahead and cash those 2 checks from your previous job?
Yeah, I still go back to that. I mean, to me, that is very telling. So Pitchey goes back to Amy's family, gives them all this information, and that's when they reported her missing to the Billerica Police Department. So police questioned Bob again about Amy's whereabouts. They asked him if he had heard from her. Bob told them he didn't know where she moved to and that he hadn't heard from her. Police asked him why he did not report her missing over the last year and a half and why he didn't find it strange that she never once in all this time checked on her son.
That would be concerning.
Yeah, I said I thought it was tough to imagine her leaving her son behind. Okay, let's say she thought that was best. You're telling me she's not going to make a single phone call to talk to her son,
right?
Find out if he's okay.
No visit.
That one's really hard to square up.
Yeah, that's a hard pill to swallow.
It is. Bob simply told police he didn't think she was missing. He thought she left. She was living her life the way she wanted to. The Billerica police and the state police questioned him a few times. And I think the issue that they had with Bob was that his story about the events of October 18th were not consistent.
You know, when someone lies about something and you're asked again about something, sometimes you don't remember what you said.
That's why it's hard to lie.
Yeah, because it's going to come back around. And if you don't have your facts straight, especially if you're talking about something like this, if you're talking to police, investigators, you know, you better make sure you have your story straight.
The Lowell Sun News reported that the first time Bob was questioned, he said he dropped Amy off at the train station and she was wearing her business clothes. Another time he told police he dropped her off at the train station, but saw her get into a gray minivan and the van pulled away. Another time he said to them that she took a train back home to her family in Michigan, which is very strange because we talked about how she's been estranged from her family, but she didn't even have family in Michigan.
Yeah. So why would he say that? Unless she told him she had family in Michigan trying to throw him off her trail, or
he's just making stuff up. We don't know. The two agencies searched Bob's home. They even brought in specialized cadaver dogs to search in and around the house. They didn't find anything. Police re-interviewed her office coworkers. And I think Gibbs, at this point, the thought was that, okay, this is strange. You know, here's a guy who appeared to have so much control over his wife, but yet he would simply let her leave, like the different versions he has given, and never speak to her again.
Seems very strange for sure.
If he's this controlling person sleeping with the enemy type,
right,
that he's been made out to be.
If you believe what the coworkers say, if you believe what the family says.
Yes. That things don't mesh,
Exactly.
right?
Exactly.
Investigators never officially questioned Bob at the police station. So much time had elapsed since Amy allegedly got on the train. Investigators just could not find any evidence that she disappeared or any evidence of foul play. Amy's family was upset that investigators were never able to question Amy's son. Bob would never allow it. And I think you can read something into that as well.
Well, sure you can.
Again, if you're controlling the situation, and at this point you have to, if you've done something that you shouldn't have done,
right, and
maybe you're worried that this child saw something, knows something, and is going to expose something.
Right. And you're going to do everything you can to keep your son from being interviewed by the police.
Amy's family felt that the police should have seized Bob's computer, checked the hard drive, checked his phone records, credit card statements, but apparently they never did.
Well, if they never had enough evidence to move forward to be able to do all that.
They may not have legally been able to do that. I get that.
I understand their frustration though. But yeah, if the police didn't have the legal means to do that, then it didn't happen.
Amy's family sent her son a few certified letters in the hopes that he would read them, just so he would know that he had family out there who loved him and wanted to see him. I'm sure, Gibbs, they were hoping that if he knew anything about his mother's disappearance, maybe he would eventually share that with them.
Sure. If you got comfortable with them, maybe you said, you know what, I'm scared. I knew this happened or that happened.
Shortly after Bob was last questioned about Amy's disappearance, he decided that he was going to leave the area, and he moved out of state with his son. Amy's mother attempted to stop him from leaving the state with her grandson, but the court rejected her motion. Now, she appealed, and in 2007, she won her case in the appellate court, which granted her the rights to visit her grandson. But by that time, Bob and his son were living in California.
Well, that's about as far as you can get from Massachusetts.
Yeah. Yeah, he went about as far as you can go.
Yeah.
I guess he could have went to Hawaii.
Could have, But far as without getting on a plane, if you just wanted to drive, that's about as far as you can go.
In the Continental.
Yeah.
The Billerica and state police, they both wanted this case solved either by finding Amy alive or finding out that she had succumbed to foul play and then finding out who murdered her and where her body was. The investigators have always thought that Bob was a person of interest, but they just never have put together enough evidence to make him a suspect. And Gibbs, I don't know how anybody cannot think, at the very least, this guy's a person of interest.
Well, yeah, you hear all these different accounts from coworkers. You'd have to believe that.
Well, and I think if you go online and research the case in forums and look at comments on different sites, most people, I will say the majority of things that I saw, they think he's much more than a person of interest.
I agree with you. They do.
And I'll leave it at that.
Right.
The problem is, if the police don't have enough evidence, what can you do?
Exactly.
You can't say that this guy for certain did anything because we just don't know. We don't have those facts.
We don't.
But it sure doesn't stop people from having their opinion.
People are allowed to have opinions. People can speculate.
Amy Sher's disappearance never really gained a lot of momentum. I think mostly because investigators had very few leads to go on.
Well, and I also think kind of what you just talked about, just like the general public's opinion online is, I think that was probably the opinion with a lot of investigators. I think they know who did it, but if you can't prove it, nothing at this point you can do besides trying to find a way to prove it. But what are the leads are you going to get?
Right. If Bob really did have something to do with Amy's disappearance, there's probably not going to be a bunch of other leads because
they don't exist.
They don't exist. But later in 2017, after the movie 3 Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri came out, it gave Amy's family and investigators some hope that maybe they could try this and get leads. So in 2018, the family reached out to Clear Channel, who owns the billboards in the town where Amy lived, and they agreed to donate 2. And a family member paid for the 3rd billboard. At the unveiling ceremony, Amy's sister, aunt, the district attorney, and the Billerica and state police representatives were there. Sadly, Amy's mother passed in 2015, not seeing justice served in her daughter's disappearance or ever finding out what happened to her.
It's like these are now up asking what happened to Amy Sher, a question that has gone unanswered for 16 years.
A piece of Amy will always be missing.
Sher disappeared in 2002. Her body has never been found. Sher's family says she was a victim of domestic violence.
It was documented. It was real. It was very isolating. And her husband frightened us. He threatened to wipe out the whole family.
Because of that, she says Sher had an estranged relationship with her family. They didn't even know she disappeared until about a year or a year and a half later.
We did not know that she had gotten married, that she had had a son. My mother would always send out a private investigator to just kind of check on things, and that's when we found out.
Sher was last seen at Leahy Clinic in Burlington where she worked. Though no one has been charged in connection with her disappearance, her family believes she was murdered.
We don't have enough evidence yet, but I think we're going to get it from these billboards.
Hoping someone out there knows something that can help investigators piece it all together.
Take a look at that face. Do you remember anything?
So in that clip, you did get to hear some of Amy's family talk. Now, obviously, they said some of the things that we've already said. But Gibbs, I really get a sense from that of how frightened they were of Bob.
Right.
And how deeply in their heart they believe he's responsible for whatever happened to Amy.
Yeah, they really are.
At a press conference, the district attorney stated that She hoped that seeing the billboards would jog someone's memory about what they had seen or knew about Amy Sher's disappearance and most likely murder.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why you put those billboards up, right? You want someone to look at them, and maybe now's the time that they can come forward. Maybe they couldn't say anything back in the day, and they're like, you know what? That family's still suffering. Let me come forward and tell the police what I know.
Yeah, and I remember listening to that press conference, and the other thing she said is something that you and I have talked about many times. It's that someone may have this little tiny piece of information.
Yeah.
And they really don't know what they have. But if they were to share it, the police might know or might be able to make sense of that little tiny piece of information.
Right.
And it might be the spark that they need to solve the case.
It's that little piece that you just can't connect the two, but as soon as you get that piece, now you can connect and now you can move forward.
In a 2018 Boston 25 news article, Billerica Police Chief Roy Frost stated that he believes Bob is a person of interest in the case and has information on what happened to Amy in 2002. He said, "We're all interested. Billerica Police, the Middlesex District Attorney's Office, the Massachusetts State Police Homicide Unit, we're all interested in bringing closure to this for her family and friends. Amy's case is still active with both agencies. Her family has been crystal clear that Amy would have never left her son, especially in what they felt was a violent home." And that's something that you and I touched on.
Yeah.
So you're telling me that as a mother, she's going to escape, but leave her son in that situation?
I don't think a mom would ever do that.
It's so unlikely.
Yeah. Or I don't think a parent would ever do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either way, the family feels that Bob murdered Amy and got rid of her body, and he's gotten away with it.
Well, you heard that right there on the recording. Her sister stating exactly that.
Gibbs, I think Amy's family believes that she finally got tired of the abuse and the control that Bob had over her. She threatened to leave and take their son with her. That caused Bob to snap, and he either killed her in a rage or somehow accidentally killed her during the argument.
Well, we also know that the abuse, according to her coworkers, appeared to be getting worse as time went forward. So maybe she needed to make a stand and get out of there, or maybe it just got so bad that there was no chance of her ever coming back to work because it went too far.
That she was killed during a domestic altercation.
Yes.
So, as we wrap up this case, there are some mysteries here, but I think there are many people believe that it's not a mystery at all. They're very confident in what they believe happened to Amy Sher. Now, they don't know the details of how it happened,
right?
But a lot of people are very confident that they know who was responsible.
Yes. I mean, I guess you could say, sure, she got a train, she left, she decided, I don't want to see my son ever again. I'm just going to get out of here, and I'm glad, what's his name didn't stop me, and I'm going to go live my life. You could say that.
Yeah, and I think to believe that, you have to believe that Bob would have been okay with that.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one to believe.
Sure.
Knowing all of the accusations that have been made against him regarding how controlling he was as a husband.
Right.
And as we've said, you'd have to believe that she was okay with leaving her son.
Yes.
And I think it's all of that put together that makes, to me, that scenario very implausible.
Right.
At the time Amy went missing, she was 5'6". She weighed 110 pounds. She had brown hair, hazel eyes. Amy wore eyeglasses with large frames. Today, she would be 56 years old.
Yeah, 2 years older than me.
If you have any information about Amy's disappearance, you can call the Billerica, Massachusetts Police Department at 978-671-0900. Gibbs, as in every unsolved case that we do, we want to see it solved. My personal opinion is Amy's not alive. They're not going to find her living in another state under a different name. I don't believe that in my heart. I don't think the family believes that. As we've kind of talked about, I don't know the path to solving this one. You know, maybe it is the billboards. I think what makes this one a little different is I believe everybody involved led such a solitary life.
Right.
Some not because they chose to. So the likelihood that someone else was either involved or knew about it or was told after the fact, it seems less likely in this case to me.
Yeah.
Than in others that we do. So I don't know. I hope the family gets the answers that they're looking for.
I do too. And I think if you're somebody out there suffering from domestic violence, there's so many different hotlines you can call, right? Now, we could say, here's the U.S. one, here's the Canadian one, here's this. There's so many out there. I think if you...
they're very easy to find.
Very easy to find. And if you can, try to reach out and get that help.
Yeah, I would say take advantage of all the... in today's environment versus, let's say the 1980s. Yeah. Oh my gosh, the resources right now have grown exponentially.
Right.
Now, there's still that situation. Mm-hmm. And Amy might have been exactly in that situation where I'm sure she easily could have found a number to call.
She was extremely intelligent. Sure. So yeah, she could have.
I'm sure she had a computer at work.
Yeah. Well, and they had the number up on the flyer in the bathroom. So,
but she had been so traumatized.
Right.
That I truly believe she was scared that if she ever did anything like that, it would be the last thing she ever did.
Sure. Yeah.
And that is unbelievably sad.
Yeah.
But that's it for the case of the disappearance of Amy Sher. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's hear them.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Gibby. My name's Sarah. I live in Manchester in the UK. I just wanted to say I absolutely love listening to your podcast. I think you're both hilarious, and I love the way you bounce off each other. I just love your sense of humour, and I think you're just lovely, genuinely lovely guys. So yeah, I'm recovering from COVID, from pneumonia at the moment, and your podcasts are cheering me up actually. But yeah, thanks so much. Keep doing what you're doing. And just on a side note, Mike, I do think you sound like Tom Hanks. I don't know whether anyone's ever said that to you, but to me, a British person, you sound just like Tom Hanks. And I just thought I'd put that out there. But yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Love listening. Take care. Bye.
Hey, we're not allowed to play that because people are going to really realize it's you, Tom, that's playing your character, Mike Ferguson, the podcaster.
We have heard that a few times.
Yeah.
Over the years. I don't really know because it's hard for me to make that comparison, but I've heard it before. I've also heard a lot of people say that you look like Matthew McConaughey. So
I look?
Yeah.
Well, hey.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey guys, this is Eric Caudle. I'm from Kentucky, and I just wanted to let you know that I listen to TCAT Unsolved, and Criminology. I binged it all month, and I'm actually through with every episode. Can't wait to hear a new one. I do a lot of driving for my job. A suggestion for true crime all the time unsolved would be the Crystal Rogers murder in Kentucky, and there's other few murders that they think may have been connected with that murder over the past couple of years. Just recently, I think in 2019 or just 2020, they were doing FBI investigations on a certain suspect. I just wanted to see if you guys could chime in on that. Thank you.
Yeah, Gibbs, that sounds very familiar. I think it's on the list, but we'll definitely make sure.
Buongiorno, Mike and Gibby. This is Brian Vincenzo from Rome calling. Rome, Illinois. That is. I called to tell you I love the podcast. I love the KitKat podcast. I especially love Gibby's accent. His Italian is very, very authentic. He speaks fluent Italian. Very, very beautiful. I also love your brilliant movie reviews. You could be the next Siskel and Ebert. So keep your own time ticking. Bye-bye. Ciao.
I actually got a kick out of that one.
That's so good. I really appreciate that. Yeah, aroma. Oh, I love me some aroma. Aroma is so good. It just smells so good up there.
This is much better than yours, dude.
Hey, Mike and Gibby. It's your boy, Aaron, out of good old Sacramento. I don't have any new case suggestions for the new year, unfortunately, but I just wanted to say to Gibby, I'm glad to hear that you're on the mend and you're feeling better after dealing with what you had to go through. That's pretty awesome news, and hopefully you'll be 100% in no time. Just wanted to say I was looking forward to an episode over the Christmas holidays, but I understand we all have to recharge our batteries, so it was an opportunity for me to go back and listen to older episodes for the second, third, fourth time, and just pick up on things that I might have missed the first go around. So getting to that, honestly, it was pretty awesome. So I hope you guys had a good time over with your family over the holidays, and keep the new year rolling with new episodes. And as long as you have new episodes, you're always going to have a loyal fan of me. So I appreciate all you guys do. And with that said, gentlemen, keep your head on a swivel and keep your own time ticking. Thank you, boys. Bye-bye.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Aaron. We appreciate it. All right, buddy, we got to get out.
We do.
That is another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.